I invite you to take a breath in, to let it out. Close your eyes if it's comfortable for you, and listen to these words. I was angry with my friend. I told that wrath, and it did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, and it did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears, and I sunned it with smiles and soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And then my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. Into my garden he stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning, glad I see my foe stretched out beneath the tree. The words of William Blake. Open your eyes. I can still remember exactly how my mother sounded, her voice, her tone, her inflection, when, thank God, she had decided to use her parental powers for good and not evil, instead of whooping my behind. The day I was acting like I knew better than her, had the nerve to actually stand up to my 7-year-old height and raise my voice at her. Ooh. Just because I was mad for not getting my way. It is a memory etched in the gray matter of my mind. Etched. You know how sometimes you open your mouth and your mama comes out? Here's my mama. Carol, you better stop right now. Don't take that attitude of yours. Don't go up on the mountaintop with me. The air is cold and thin up there. And I'm telling you, you will be all alone up there. Nobody's going up on that mountain with you to keep you company. Nothing but that ugliness I am seeing right now. You better stop. Ouch. She was so right. That was a long time ago. I'm no longer a cranky 6, 7, or 8-year-old, but I have to admit, once in a while, I get good and mad, and I stay mad, and I wallow around in it a little bit, and I can smell and taste that icy, rare air of anger. Righteous anger. The poem I read for you from William Blake, A Poison Tree, it conveys that kind of anger exactly. It's sly, it's sharp like a piece of glass. I love this verse because I know that sometimes, try as I might, my anger, like Blake's apple, sometimes it is something I can sink my teeth into. On the surface, this poem is very simple. Blake is angry with two people, his friend, his foe. In short order, he releases the wrath at his friend. He just talks to him. He tells the gentleman he is annoyed. He quickly gets over his fury, and life moves on. When I first read the poem, in my mind's eye, I thought about Masterpiece Theater and some Victorian gentlemen. I could see them. Top hats, ruffled shirts, perhaps a cane with a fancy bob on the end. They're walking down a London street. One sees the other. They exchange a glance. They lean in on their canes. They come closer to each other. and they exchange a few words. But well, you said I just... And then there's laughter. Of course, I know, my fault, not yours. They clap each other on the back, they tip their hats, and go about their business. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath, and it did end. Not so quickly for the foe. Blake embraces that anger at the foe. He feeds it, he waters it, he nurtures it with delicious pleasure. And I sunned it with smiles and soft, deceitful wiles. Unchecked, Blake pours all of his being and his energy into that living, breathing fixation, the being and staying angry, the breathing, the icy, rare air. He even lies and pretends that everything is fine, bringing his foe closer. I sunned it with smiles and soft, deceitful wiles. He tends his garden of anger so well that it grows this beautiful, bright, shiny apple. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. The feelings of Blake fester and manifest themselves into something detrimental, something inhumane, something deadly, a poison, delicious-looking apple. And we know what's going to happen, right? All stories with ill-grown fruit. The foe gets the fruit, the foe bites the fruit, the foe dies. Talk about don't get mad, get even. Blake's intentions are so well hidden with smiles and deceitful illusions, but in the end it pays off. His patient watering, his patient feeding of this anger, one bite of that apple, and his enemy is simply no more. That's anger you can get your teeth into. That's also the kind of behavior that slowly but surely eats away at your soul. Unfortunately, it's the kind of anger that we are trapped in a cycle of these days. When our national government shuts down because of political wrangling, lack of leadership, and infighting. When we actually consider military strikes against Syria because they are dropping chemical warfare on their own civilians. When the Tulsa mayoral campaign consists of two candidates who for months and months go at each other with innuendo, with slurs, with personal attacks, and little, if any, civility. The lens has shifted. We have become a slightly ticked off, angry people. And everyday civility has been tossed in the trash. And the rules of personal and public engagement have completely changed. I've been puzzling on this and wondering why. What happened? Why are we so mad? A few things. I think that navigating daily through a toxic, mean-spirited, media-driven environment just kind of makes us furious. I also think we've lost sight of our interconnectedness, our need for sacred and secular community, and we have forgotten. We've forgotten how deeply dependent each of us is on the other. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. We have forgotten that we are indeed our brother's keepers. I don't think there's anything wrong with getting upset or being angry. And there are all kinds of problems, issues, people, just stuff that ticks us off. Probably ticks you off too. But I made a list. I kind of divided it up. So some of the things that bother me are small. Stubbing my big toe twice, same night, on a bed frame, that every time I walk into the bedroom, I know I need to move the bed frame, and I don't. A rock that hits my windshield and creates that little star, and the next day, the ferocious Tulsa sun hits the star, and the crack slides across. Ouch. I was so not happy. Surprises. Not the good kind. Doggy surprises. Left unscooped. Surprises. The ones I step in on my morning walk around the lake. Not nice. Small things, though. Small things. One more. An empty toilet paper roll. It gets better. It gets better. There should never be an empty toilet paper roll, right? Especially when you live alone. I live alone. Those are small things. Those are small. The next part of the list, though, was not so small. Politicians, red or blue, who lack integrity. People who are not handicapped or disabled in any way, shape, or form, who don't have that little sticker, but slide right on in that space in front of Walgreens. Makes me mad. And some things are huge. The tragic shootings of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, and Martin Luther King Jr., simply because they stood up for others and leaned into their values, what they thought was right and what they knew was wrong. Human trafficking and the selling of children and women into lives of sexual slavery makes me furious. The rising rate of domestic violence and abused women and children who are battered on a daily basis. Those are huge. These are a few of the things that get under my skin and they make me angry. And like I said, anger itself is okay. But what I have discovered is this. You have to deal with all that anger. You have to do something about it. You can't just sit on it and let it fester. You can't encourage it to grow into that apple like Blake suggested. No, you go ahead, you get mad. You find out what you're furious about, and then you do one of two things. For small bits of anger, mirror Blake's behavior at the beginning of that poem. Deal with them head on, protect your toes at nighttime, and let them go. But for bigger things, for larger things, for things that are unjust, that need to be made just, you have got to do something constructive with that kind of anger. You have got to figure out what you're mad about, why you're furious, and then do something. Set about making what you find unjust, just. See, we're not just interconnected in these lives. We are responsible for each other. We are bound by love and compassion. We are responsible for our brothers and sisters. Some of the releasing that I speak of is simple. When that car slides into the spot at Walgreens, just write them a little love note. Please leave these spaces open for those in need. Maybe XOXO, Carol. A nice note. Put it under their windshield wiper. Write a letter to whoever wins the campaign. In this case, it's Mayor Dewey. And remind him of his campaign promises. Hold his feet to the fire. He's in there. There's things we need. Tell him what those things are. Those are the everyday irritants. Those are the things that we can deal with in a letter or with a note and move on from them. But of course, as I stand here, we know there are some things that are not so easy to deal with, not so easy to let go of, that hang around far longer than we thought they ever would. Stubbing my toe or a rock hitting my windshield is not on the same level as human trafficking or the rising level of domestic violence in the city of Tulsa. Sometimes you have to stop, take a breath, and then take a stand. We hear story after story in the never-ending 24-hour-a-day news cycle, and we get upset. We get angry. We want to reach out and do something for our brothers and sisters, but we're sometimes stymied. What I'm challenging you with today, what I'm asking you to do, is to make a choice. See, anger can be a positive or a negative thing. You can let it consume you and keep you from moving forward. You can give up and let the fury of anger pull you away from each other. Or you can stop. You can get in touch with your values, with what you believe in, with the beliefs that bind us together here in community, and lean into affecting change. See, a good dose of righteous anger, it can inspire us. It can provoke us. It can incite us and give us a kick in the pants when we need one to exert that effort necessary for change. See, I know, looking at all of you and at the other services this morning, I know that there is nothing like a good dose of righteous Unitarian Universalist anger to get some people busy. Remember that sermon title? Don't get mad, get busy. Get started. That in itself is true anger management. Staying in touch with how you feel, realizing that what unhinges you from your usual steady moorings, knowing what pushes your buttons, what ticks you off, what makes you mad, knowing what's happening out there in the world and how it's affecting you here, inside. We have to acknowledge and stay aware of our interdependence. We need to know what is most important to us, what our own deepest values are, and what we are willing and able to do when those values are challenged or compromised. An example that is near and dear to my heart these days. Recently, I spoke with a young woman whose husband hits her. In hindsight, and because I now have a minister's ear, I realized that him striking her was simply the final straw in a series of macro and micro aggressions that framed an abusive relationship. He yelled at her for the smallest things: an unmade bed, a stack of dirty dishes, forgetting to bring the mail in at the end of the day. He made her post her work schedule on the refrigerator so he could keep track of her comings and goings. He threatened to have her sent back home if she didn't become a better cook, a better housekeeper, or work more hours, and bring her check home on time and hand it to him. By the time she finished telling me her story, in what seemed like a river, a torrent of tears and words, I was pretty damn mad. I was mad at her husband. I was livid at the system that she felt trapped by. I'm furious with her parents for advising her to marry this wealthy American man. I'm just tied up in knots because we have a faulty, complicated social service network that offers this poor woman little more than a clean toothbrush, a bed for one night, and a gently used change of clothing. Set about going, making what you find unjust, just. I called the YWCA after I spoke to her, and I got the number of an immigration attorney who works pro bono for DVIS, Domestic Violence Intervention Services. I spoke at length with the attorney, and then I took the young woman's hands and the attorney's hands and brought them together. I did what I could to help make a bad situation better. I took some concrete steps to make an unjust just. I didn't solve all of her problems. I wasn't able to find her a job. I wasn't able to get her out of his house. I did something that I could do. See, I know that our lives are busy and that things are crazy making. I know that there is conflict internally and externally. I know some people are going to be passive-aggressive liars. They're going to park where they shouldn't. They're not going to scoop after their dogs. I know we are going to get angry because we are a righteous people who want to effect change. I believe that deeply in my heart. I also know that in every one of those crazy-making, frustrating, maddening instances, you get to make a choice. You get to decide whether or not what you run into is going to ruin the rest of your day. You get to decide if it will take you to a place where you can't affect change, but just make you see red. You get to decide if you're going to take it out on your partner or your child or kick the dog or take a breath and go for a walk. You get to choose how you're going to put your feelings to work and begin to amend these things that rile you up. See, it's okay to be angry. It happens. But remember, that anger is yours. It is not okay to let it drip on someone else. It's not okay to leave it unresolved so it morphs into that bright, shiny red apple. Taking action is incredibly important. And I think that's what I'm doing today, standing up here, preaching at y'all. I'm challenging you. I'm challenging you to take action, to get busy fixing the things that are broken in our world, the things that upset you. See, remember, there is danger in holding that in creating those bright, shiny red apples. Quite often, it's so shiny, it's so red, that you're the one that ends up taking that bite. I'm going to close this sermon today with the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. These come from the letter from a Birmingham jail. I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what is happening in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one of us directly affects all of us. So, church, that's what I'm doing. I'm challenging you. Don't get mad. Get busy. Right the wrongs. Make injustices just. And please, please remember, you are your brother's keeper. Blessed be, and amen.